Welcome back to Banter and Beans. This is the first episode of 2025. We're very excited to be back this summer. And our format is this is our short format show, and we'll be digging into bills that the legislature passed this year. Right, Pat?
Yep, we're ready. They
We're
have a
ready.
lot this year. When you sent me that
81
list,
bills. 81 bills is what we've
when
got
did
this
they
year.
do that? I missed some of them. They
I
just
guess
went
so.
right through it.
Right through it, and we've got all of our equipment. We've got our coffee mugs, and Pat's
Banter
got
and
her
beans.
banner, although she's going to adjust it. It's a little bit
Yeah,
low at the
you
moment.
can't see it.
Yeah, right now it just looks like ban. We've got ban happening. Yep.
It's a great logo. I'll fix it for next time.
Oh, there you go. You can see the logo right there.
Yeah, there you go.
There's
I
our
need a
logo
little
for the show.
assistance hanging it up.
Yeah,
I can't do it myself.
we'll help you out with that.
Thank you.
So, first bill we're talking about 2025. Pat, you want to know what it is?
Yes, I do. Be interesting to
It's
see what's important to you
and what's
that you
important
picked
to
out.
me.
Yeah.
Yes. The property tax bill. And I'm not talking about the education reform bill. That's a separate bill. This is the bill that sets property taxes for FY 2026,
Right.
which just started, by the way. The FY 2026 started on July 1st and is running through June 30th of 2026. So this is our property taxes for this year.
I wonder how many people know the different years. Like June is the state fiscal year, October is the federal fiscal year, and
Yep.
for the rest of us, it's January. That's kind of
Yep.
cool.
Well,
Confusing,
so
but cool.
the state and school districts both share July 1st as
Okay.
their fiscal year, and actually, Campaign for Vermont also has a July 1st fiscal year. So there we go.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
know,
I just signed the forms not too long ago.
you just signed the forms for that. Um, so this is the property tax bill for FY 26. It's called H.491 is the bill number, and it was signed into law. So it's Act 24. We do have a summary, a review of it on our website. If you go to campaignforvermont.org and look for our bill summaries, we do have a summary of it, which summarizes everything for you. So go check that out. Um, and this is traditionally called the yield bill. And the reason it's called the yield bill is because there is a statewide property tax rate, but of $1, but that rate gets adjusted based on local spending. And so it's usually the legislature refers to this as the yield bill because the yield is what determines the formula for what your local tax rate is going to be, the adjustment to the statewide tax rate. So an example, my favorite example of this is, let's say you have a district, or excuse me, let's say you have a yield number of $10,000 is your yield in the current funding system. You have a district that's spending $15,000 per student. They're spending 50% above the yield number, so their tax rate is going to be 50% above the statewide tax rate. So if the statewide tax rate's $1, the statewide yield is $10,000. The district is spending 15. Their tax rate is going to be $1.50. It's 50% above the statewide tax rate. So that's kind of how the yield works. So what the legislature does is they set the yield number, and then they can kind of calculate based on that number what the average tax rate is going to be. So they kind of know that way if people's tax rates are going up or down. Of course, that'll vary district by district based on your cost per student number, but that's generally how it works. So what did the legislature do, Pat? What do you think they did for the yield?
I'm going to throw that question right back to you, Ben.
So this year, the legislature set the property tax. Now this is where things start getting complicated, and the whole funding system in general is very complicated. So this is definitely a little bit of an oversimplification, but there are two different yield numbers because we have a group of taxpayers that pay based on their property value, and we have a group of taxpayers that pay based on their income. So not on their property value, but based on their income. So we actually have two different yields. We have one for the property taxpayers and one for the income payers. And believe it or not, the income payers, like, Pat, what do you think the proportion of income to property taxpayers are? Like, how many people do you think proportionally pay based on their income versus based on their property value?
You know, you're talking to somebody who doesn't get this at all. So you just
As
keep
a
talking right ahead.
former
I don't
deputy
understand what you're saying.
secretary of education, right?
Yeah, right. Deputy.
Deputy, deputy secretary of education. Um, it's actually two-thirds. Two-thirds of Vermonters pay based on their income, not on their property value. So you'll hear people talk about, oh, we need to use income to pay for, you need an income tax to pay for education. We kind of already have an income tax that pays for education. Um, Even when we're talking about our property taxes, two-thirds of people pay their property taxes based on their household income. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. It's called the income sensitivity program. It did change in the new education reform bill a little bit, but that is not the bill we're talking about today. We'll come back to that at a future date.
And what is
Um,
the cutoff for wealth, or for when you pay on your income? What is that cutoff?
yes.
The amount?
So it's up to $90,000. You pay 100% based on income, and then between 190 and I think it's 120 now, it trails off. So there's like a tail that you start paying a little bit based on your property value and less on your income between 90 and $120,000 of household income.
Okay, so
Um,
it's household. It's two incomes or whatever. It's
and
they're
it's,
combined.
yes,
That's
combined
not hard to
household
reach.
income. Well, yes and no. It is also it's AGI, so it's like what your federal taxable income is. So like
Ah,
it's not your gross income number. So like that's
okay.
yes, it's not hard to reach that. Still, two-thirds of people are not meeting that threshold. So like there's also a cap on your house site value. Right now, I think it's around $400,000. So if your house has to be below that $400,000 or 450,000, I can't remember exactly what the number is at the moment, but it has to be below that cap. If your house value is above that cap, you're paying based on property. So there's two different cutoffs you have to be cognizant of when you're talking about the income sensitivity program.
One more comment. It's very sad that two-thirds of our Vermonters do not reach that number. That
Yeah,
says a lot.
it does say a lot. It does say a lot. And that number, by the way, is one of the biggest cliffs. We looked at this several years ago in terms of like where the cliffs are in terms of public supports for folks that are
Right.
coming out of the working class or working poor and trying to get into the middle class. Where are those benefit cliffs where like there's sudden increases in cost to the household? There's two significant ones, and they're both around 90,000. It's the income sensitivity is one where you see a significant jump in your property tax liability once you hit that 90,000 threshold or just after the 90,000 threshold. The other one is your healthcare subsidies on the exchange. So, if you're going out and buying on the healthcare exchange for your healthcare benefits, you also have a cutoff that's right around 90,000 where those subsidies go away. And so that's a significant jump in cost as well. So those are the two, and they're right around 90,000. So like that's something that we've been paying attention to in terms of how we can level out some of those benefit cliffs for folks.
Right.
All right. So what did the legislature pass? Well, they passed a property tax yield. So this is the folks that pay based on their property value. A yield of 8,596, which results in a net average property tax rate of $1.59.5. So that's the average property tax rate is $1.5095. Last year's rate, for comparison, was $1.30. However, property values grew pretty significantly in that time frame. So really, when you look at the average bill change, right? So this is the two things: is like the rate doesn't tell you the whole story, because if your values are going up, and values went up 14% this year, right? Your bill is going to go up pretty significantly. So what that gets us to is a 1.1% increase in what our average expected bill is going to be. They did that through a number of different ways, and we'll get into that in a minute. But it's sort of important to understand, like, yes, the change in the rate is significant, but really what's more significant is what is the average bill change, because property values could be going up or down. So it's the combination of the rate and the value. Income sensitized rate is $12. It's 12,172, which will result in an average income tax rate of 2.27%. That is slightly down from last year at 2.33%. But again, because incomes are coming up, that's also going to net out to an expected average 1.1% increase in tax bills. And there's this third category, which is called non-homestead property tax rates, which is a single rate that is statewide. It does not change based on local spending. And that is the rate that businesses pay, that apartment buildings pay, that second homes pay, basically anything that is not a primary single-family home. And that those bills are also going up at an expected 1.1%. So something that is important to note about that, though, is that spending went up. School spending went up 5.5%, right? So how did we get from a 5.5% increase in spending to a 1.1% increase in taxes? How do you think we did that, Pat?
I don't know, but I'm assuming the 5% is mostly salaries, correct?
It is mostly
And benefits,
salaries and benefits. Yep.
right?
And so you hear a lot about, healthcare being a driving factor, and healthcare is definitely a factor. I do think it's overstated, because still the largest category of increase is still salaries, direct salary.
Right.
And we know 80% of our cost in public education is salary and benefits, personnel.
Yep.
It's not buildings, it's not all this other stuff, it's personnel. So,
Yep.
Important thing to think about here is we have 5.5% increase in spending. Inflation for 2026 is projected to be 2.8%. So spending increased at basically twice the rate of inflation. But our property taxes are not going to match either the rate of inflation or spending. And the reason for that is because the legislature and the governor chose to use $118 million in one-time monies to buy down property tax rates. That was a combination of $41 million in surplus from last year. So we had some extra funds that came in, like extra tax revenue that came in last year that wasn't allocated. They rolled that forward to this year. And then they spent $77 million in general fund revenues to transfer the education fund, again, to buy down the property tax rate. The problem with that is if we don't have a surplus next year, right? And we aren't going to do that general fund transfer, we suddenly have a $120 million hole that we have to dig out of, right? And so if we hit a recession, that's problematic, right?
Right.
And so one of the things that is concerning about this bill is all that use of one-time funds. And something that is also important to note is a third of the education fund, a third of the funds that go to education spending, a third of that come from our sales and use tax. So what is the first thing that goes when you hit a recession, Pat? What do you think the first tax revenue that hits that goes downhill quickly?
That's a good question. Gasoline, fuel.
Any sort of discretionary spending. So like
Yeah.
consumer spending, gasoline, like all those types of things that are sort of like discretionary. Um, those are the first things that go in a recession because people are not spending money. And so the sales and use tax takes a big hit in a recession. So if the sales and use tax, let's just say we hit a recession in the middle of this year, right, in the middle of this fiscal year. Um, if we optimistically just say that the revenues are flat, just flat, not even growing, flat, uh, you know, we won't have a surplus next year. We might even have a deficit in that education fund. We probably won't have that general fund transfer, and we will have a hole from the sales tax revenue that's not there. We're easily looking at a 20% increase, 20% increase in property taxes next year if we hit a recession. Very realistic scenario. So that's
You know,
concerning.
we used to talk, you and I talked a lot about food insufficiency
Mm-hmm.
in Vermont. And it's one out of every four individuals that deal with food insufficiency. And when the money goes down from your checkbook or your apartment, the first thing you cut back on is food
It's food.
because you don't have to, quote, you don't have to eat, I guess, because you have to pay your mortgage and your
Well,
rent.
you might not go out to eat as often, right?
Right,
So that's certainly one of the things people cut back on is like you don't go out to eat, you eat at home. And we get tax revenue when people go out to eat, 10% meals and rooms
right,
tax.
right.
That also goes to the education fund, some of it. But we don't collect sales tax revenue on groceries. So like if people are stopped going out to eat,
Right.
that is a hit to our tax base, and that's a little
Yep.
bit of a snowball effect, right?
Yeah, and they're eating with for less expensive food, and that's where we're at. 1 to 4 deal with food insufficiency in an agricultural state, I might add. That just always boggles my mind.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are out of time for this show, so thank you for joining us, and join us on the next episode.
Can we extend it maybe a minute? The market factor issue was about a year or two ago. They changed all the market factors, right?
The weighting factors.
Weighting factors. Sorry, I don't know why I said market factor. Weighting factors. Are they kicking in yet? Because last year they
Mm.
weren't. Do we have a good handle on them?
Yeah. The uh, they are in the middle of being implemented right now.
Yeah,
So they should be, I think, next year they're supposed to be
next
fully
year.
implemented. Yeah.
Is that
Um,
supposed to make an impact, at least on certain communities, and maybe good or
yeah.
bad on others?
Yeah. I mean, it's picking winners and losers. So
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
definitely, there are some that are benefiting and some that are not. So,
Right. And they made sense when they were talking about it, why they were looking at certain things in different communities. I understood it. I don't know if it's a good thing to do, but I understood why they were looking at the topics that they picked. It's
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we will catch you on the next episode.
Thank you.